Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jack. Back again to talk about my main for Antorus, my plan of action as we go into the Burning Throne, which is coming up very soon. I've been getting a lot of questions going over, what my plans are going to be, how I'm going to be going out, picking fights of what to play, or only playing one thing. I know there's been a lot of concern, for example, with Holy Priests, with the set bonuses being a little bit less than desirable, let's put it nicely, and the fact that it's kind of scaring a lot of people off and pushing a lot of players towards Disc. Discipline is actually in the position now where everyone's really starting to pick up a lot of steam now. Where through Nighthold and going forward, it's getting just more and more favor after everyone thought it was just horrible in the end because it was so much different than the previous expansion. Where going from the most overpowered healer to actually a balanced healer was shocking to many people, right? So I definitely see a lot more people switching to Disc, and it's fueled partially by, people seeing what it's capable of, but it's also fueled a lot by people being concerned about Holy Priest. My plan of action going into Antorus, because I am the only Priest healer in the raid group, so I ran Vision on Thrall, and we have our Holy Paladin, we have Resto Shaman Trial, and we also have a Mistweaver who has a Resto Shaman alt that he might actually take advantage of. We've got a Resto Druid, and then of course we've got myself. So we've got these options, in terms of, I have the option to be playing either of them, both of them, things like that. So I'm not, and I will say I'm not too scared by some of the holy problems that are coming up, but it also does really make me notice how much more powerful Discipline's actually going to be looking in this final raid. One of the nice things is, and from the trinket video that I was just going over on the previous video, which you can check out if you check out in the description below, is that trinkets are actually going to be fairly balanced and actually a lot more niche than they were in previous raids. I mean, you have trinkets that can be really strong on ad fights. You have really strong fights that can favor that. So kind of like ANR, where you're getting constant ads coming out, that you'll be able to either use a DPS trinket, like the mini Sentinax Rain of Fire, basically, or you're able to use, more healing-based trinkets, where we're talking about the Steal Life mechanic, which would be giving you more intellect if the target is higher HP, where you're having constant ads coming out, and then a couple of users pointing that out in the comments for the trinket video, is that, if the ads are always spewing out, you're always able to hit a target with 100% HP on cooldown, which is really nice. And while those are more niche scenarios, it does definitely reflect on, well, what's going to be most powerful if you're getting thousands and thousands of intellect on a 1-minute cooldown, and you can have control over it for small burst windows in time. That's really screaming Discipline to me. I don't know about you guys, right? So those things are very interesting to be looking at and to be preparing for. But overall, I'd say my plan for Antorus is definitely going to be playing both and keeping myself flexible whenever possible. Right now, I'm 73, almost 74, I believe, in both Holy and Disc, so I should be able to wrap those up, getting to 75 before Antorus gets started. And a lot of times, you're able to see that, once you have access to both of them, you really have a lot of opportunities to be flexible. And while healers are not generally going to be fed a lot of gear, if you're going to be able to pick up the right pieces, and you should be able to flip between both of them pretty easily. So my plan going into Antorus is Heroic Week is starting, is doing heroic splits with my guild, and starting it off by switching between Holy and Disc for every single fight. So fight 1, I'll play Holy, fight 2, I'll play Disc, and so on and so forth. And what I would like to do there is feel out the fights, past my initial assumptions that I'll see from watching other people's clips or watching other people's videos or looking at other people's logs, to make sure that I have, that own experience. And the things I really want to be focusing on kind of are different for both specs, right? For Holy, it's going to be how long these encounters are looking to be on Mythic. I think it's going to be short order for my heavily Mythic geared raid team from Tuma Sargeras to be clearing through most of the heroic bosses fairly rapidly. But when you're looking at the fights on Mythic, what they're going to be holding there, how much longer that they're really going to be pushing, those things are really going to stand out and say, all right, well, I know that I'm going to be having, more favorable damage patterns to Disc or something like that, or when I have it for Holy or something like that. But depending on my group's raid composition, that may not be, viable to run, or it may not be favorable, I guess is a better way to term. Both specs are going to be viable. I want to make sure that's clear. But having the most favorable option to bring with you in cutting edge progression really makes it a lot easier for your entire raid group to respond well. So having an encounter with very predictable burst patterns, with ads out that you can use specific trinkets if you get them to take advantage of, either the AoE DPS trinket on a non-use, or the lifesteal int bonus that you can be using on a target at full health. You know, things like that come into play. What is the relevance of when those targets or when those opportunities are going to be available to you? You know, Holy I think of as a very strong attrition healer, where you are able to sustain high HPS for long, constant periods of time. And that's one reason I played Holy, for example, on Sisters of the Moon on Mythic, because our first kill was almost 10 minutes. So I just sat there and kept healing, kept steady healing over the course of almost 10 minutes. Whereas Disc, I feel like I would have to really be holding back and really like sitting there waiting for burst before I can actually be making a significant difference or making, you know, large impacts on the healing as a whole. And for my raid group, that was something that, no, I think we just needed better and more consistent healing, and we also needed a little bit better focused single target healing from like Holy Word Serenities and things like that, because rapid shots was one thing that was dropping people really, really low at a constant basis. So factoring in the different weights, the different benefits that each spec's going to bring you, there's not a wrong answer, but I definitely believe there's going to be a better answer going forward. And I even, you know, for example, we're going into Fallen Avatar progression and even Mythic Kil'jaeden progression. Those two fights, Fallen Avatar progression, for example, even though Phase 1 felt really bad for Holy, I definitely wanted to give it a serious try because it was awkward in many ways, you know, playing both specs. And there was a lot of, you know, positioning, a lot of people out of range, all kinds of stuff like that that was going into play on that fight. But eventually, because the enrage timer was so tight, basically the hard enrage, where he breaks the entire platform, it became a lot more favorable to me if I'm pumping out 300 to 400k DPS and while I'm playing Disc on a fight, we're wiping at 0%, it's saying, well, I must be playing Disc. I must be playing the right spec because I'm adding in lots of extra damage at the same time and doing very relevant healing here, right? Being able to do that as Holy is a little bit different of an equation where, you know, a lot of your heavy mana cost is like in Chastise, where it's really, really expensive there, and you don't really want to be spamming lots of that because even though Smite's free, you're not really going to be doing tons of damage there. Whereas for Discipline, Penance is huge damage, but it's also huge healing, and it's a necessary component of your healing. So you're already going to be factoring that in anyway in terms of cost. You're not casting it more and more and incurring more mana cost, because a lot of times you're just going to be using it for relevant healing, right? So those are the different kind of factors I like to keep in mind. And like I said, for cutting edge progression, I think you're going to see a lot of people kind of just sticking to one thing and going forward with that. I know a lot of people, even at this point in deepest of farm and Tomb of Sargeras, haven't really touched the other spec that much. And I think they're making a really big mistake going into Antorus, because while it may not make or break a raid group or anything like that, I do think it's going to be providing substantial advantages and making sure that your healing core is going to be as powerful as possible as you're going into later fights. And while this also kind of brings up, you know, the damage, the utility, and things like that people always love to talk about, is the best utility in many ways that a priest can bring is that they can switch between both. You know, having the option to be able to play both, be able to, you know, better push out their strengths no matter what the fight is going to be throwing at you, is amazing for cutting edge progression. I realize it's not going to be for everybody, but I definitely think that, you know, it should be something that's more explored. And I really would encourage you guys to be checking out both specs, practicing with both specs, and getting into a position where you can be comfortable for it, right? Being able to have just such strong advantages between having two healer specs in one class really just shouldn't be denied. So let me know what your thoughts are, what your plans are going to be for Antorus. Coming up next for video-wise, I'm going to be having some gearing updates, some guide updates, and things like that. Talking a little bit about, you know, minor playstyle changes that are going to be coming with the gear sets, although they are fairly minor. And just talking about some of the things I'm going to be targeting gear-wise in terms of relics, in terms of jewelry, and in terms, of course, trinkets for each specific spec. So stay tuned for those. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I will be streaming all of my progression on my live stream on Twitch. Check it out, description below. Be sure to follow the stream as well. Subscribe to the video, of course, if you're liking the channel and all the content here. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.